The concept for this event really came out of some research that Micah from Clean Forest published a few months ago about forest resilience and the funding gaps, and exploring the potential for carbon markets to fill some of those funding gaps. In one sentence, what is the problem that we're trying to solve?
I would say biomass supply chains. I'm talking about forest biomass here from wildfire thinning projects.
This is a very special panel where biomass is the central issue, but I think in the general public, biomass is not a common topic of conversation. When you think about forest thinnings and wildfire work, we don't associate biomass to it.
In this context, low-value forest biomass is somewhat self-explanatory. It's biomass that doesn't really have commercial value that generally is sufficient to get it removed from forest.
Forest products has always been driven by this fact that lumber inside a tree is more valuable than the cost to fall, buck, skid, load, haul, debark, cut. I mean, it's intensive, but that 2x4 still pays for itself. But a ton of limbs and tops and bark doesn't have much value.
So we're not talking about saw logs because those can be sold for profit. So we're often talking about small diameter trees that are not big enough to be turned into wood products, brush, branches, that kind of thing that's going to be removed as part of a wildfire treatment.
In many cases, there is too much intact carbon in these forests that is contributing to wildfire risks that needs to be removed anyway, and there's not an existing ability to process that. California has closed down a lot of its bioenergy facilities already in the Sierras, and there's such a huge backlog due to years of fire suppression and a lack of management that we need the ability to use a lot of this quickly.
Today, most of it is pile burned in forests, and that produces particulate emissions. If California is going to meet its goal of treating somewhere around 1 million acres a year, we could see 15 times more biomass coming out of forests in the future than we do today. So we really need to be developing the market for this low value biomass to turn it into biomass that actually has a value for climate benefit.
We need technology, we need funding, we need a market. I think it's a world for economists to figure out a new model where how do we pay for these projects, who's getting benefits from them, does the water users and the local community and healthcare industry and home insurance, like everybody should have some stake and benefit of the fires not happening. So where do we find that value?
The number that I use throughout the western US is we need over $100 billion to accomplish Forest Service goals, and we've got about $5 to $6 billion currently allocated. So to give you an idea of the funding gap, it's quite large.
I think sometimes the urgency of we really need to figure out how to use all this biomass is really the message we heard in the first section of this event, paired with the mechanisms to do so. Often those mechanisms don't move as quickly as the need.
It sounds a little bit corny and cliche, but to say we can all have a win-win here. There's a way that we can get this biomass out of the forest, reduce the cost for doing so by getting some of the benefit of the carbon removal credit that we can put to play at that. We can do it in a way that we're reducing pile burning for the citizens. There's sort of a way that you can stack all these pieces. But that requires a lot of time. And so I think a good collaboration requires a lot of conversation and a lot of just talking to people about, what are the things that they're thinking about and how do they look for the future and how are they thinking about what they want to get out of something like this. And so it's definitely a very interactive process and requires a lot of conversations, and having very sort of partners who are invested over a longer period of time, I think is crucial for making that happen.
All right, I think I will wrap it up there. Thank you guys all for being good sports and asking great questions. I've learned a lot, and I hope our audience has as well. One more round of applause for our speakers.